All right, let's just jump right in. Picture this. It's the early 1990s. The public internet is barely a thing. And you've got this eclectic group of mathematicians, hackers, and rebels who see something that most of us didn't. They saw that humanity was standing at a massive fork in the road, facing a huge choice.
Yeah, and this quote right here, it just nails their whole mindset. For them, this wasn't just about some cool new tech, it was a fundamental conflict. They saw this new networked world could become a tool for incredible human freedom, a way to talk and trade and connect without anyone's permission. Or it could become the ultimate tool of control, a surveillance machine that would make George Orwell's 1984 look like a children's book. The stakes, to them, were everything.
So that brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. Who exactly were these people, these cypherpunks, and what happened to their fight? Well, it turns out their ideas didn't just disappear. They planted the seeds for technologies that are at the absolute center of global debates today. This is the story of their vision, their battles, and how their code is still echoing through our lives.
So to really get this unfinished war, we're going to walk through 5 key chapters. First, we'll look at that fork in the road where it all began. Then, the 2 competing visions that kind of split the movement. We'll dive deep into the crypto wars, their head-on fight with the US government. We'll see how that early dream seemed to fade, before finally we get to how their code was reborn in a way that shocked everyone.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Section 1, a fork in the road. This is where this small group of brilliant minds, mostly in Silicon Valley, started really thinking about what a networked world would mean for all of us. They realized that this technology could make everything about society so much better, or so much worse. And their goal was to make damn sure it was the former.
Now, what's so cool is the name Cypherpunk itself. It tells you the whole story, doesn't it? You've got Cipher for the code for cryptography, and then you've got Punk for that rebellious, anti-establishment attitude. See, these folks weren't interested in lobbying or waiting for politicians to pass laws. They thought politics was broken. The real power, the key to freedom, was in math, in code.
And they weren't shy about it. They didn't just see crypto as a tool for privacy. They saw it as a revolutionary weapon. In this crossbow comparison, it is just perfect. Think about it. The crossbow was a game changer because it let a normal person challenge a powerful knight in full armor. In the exact same way, the cypherpunks believed that cryptography, just a branch of math, could give the individual a fighting chance against the massive surveillance power of a modern government. It was a seriously radical idea.
But here's the thing. Just because they all agreed on the weapon didn't mean they agreed on the battle plan. In fact, almost right away, the movement split into 2 powerful, competing visions. It was this huge clash over the right way to use this new power. Should they try to build a totally new world, separate from the old one? Or should they try to reform the existing one from the inside?
And this chart breaks down that divide perfectly. On one side, you have the crypto-anarchists, with physicist Tim May as their figurehead. Their goal was to use crypto to build a completely separate, anonymous digital world, what he called the blacknet, where government just couldn't reach. But on the other side, you had the high-tech Hayekians, led by entrepreneur Phil Salen. They wanted to use the exact same tools to make the existing world better, to create a super-efficient global marketplace that would just make government power obsolete over time.
And this quote from Tim May, man, it just captures that raw, radical spirit of the crypto-anarchists. He was talking about a world of absolute freedom, where technology makes it literally impossible for anyone to tell you no. For him, this wasn't just about privacy. It was about creating a space where anyone, dissidents, whistleblowers, even criminals, could operate completely outside the system. No permission needed.
But the other side's vision was totally different. You can see from this quote, their focus wasn't on destruction, it was on creation, on coordination. They believed that if you just made it easier for people all over the world to connect and to trade, you'd unleash this incredible wave of innovation and prosperity. They weren't trying to build a separate world, they were trying to drag the existing world forward with them.
So while these 2 sides are debating philosophy, a very real fight is brewing. Their ideas were about to slam head-on into the power of the US government. And that brings us to our 3rd section, the crypto wars. This was a battle over a very simple but revolutionary question. Is writing code a form of free speech?
Now, the technology at the center of this whole war was something called public key cryptography. And honestly, the best way to get it is this mailbox analogy. Think of it like this. Anyone in the world can find your address and drop a letter in your mailbox. Anyone. But only you have the physical key to open it and read what's inside. Public key crypto is the exact same thing, but for the digital world. It was a revolutionary way to bring private conversation back in an age of surveillance. So what did the government think of this amazing new tool for privacy? They were terrified. They didn't see it as a tool for freedom, they saw it as a weapon. And I'm not exaggerating. They literally officially classified strong encryption as a munition under arms regulations. They put it in the same legal box as a tank or a missile. Why? Because they remembered World War II, when breaking codes was key to winning the war. They thought if this tech got out, it would be a disaster for national security.
And this timeline shows you exactly how the fight went down. In '91, a developer named Phil Zimmerman releases PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy, which made this powerful crypto super easy for anyone to use. The government's response? They launched a 3-year criminal investigation against him for exporting arms just because his software got on the internet. But the Cypherpunks fought back with this brilliant move. They got MIT Press to publish the PGP source code in a book. The government knew it couldn't win a fight against a university book on free speech grounds, and by 1996, they dropped the case.
And the way they fought is just my favorite part of this whole story. They used these creative, almost performance art tactics to make their point. As you can see here, they printed the source code on t-shirts and then asked the government for a license to export them as weapons. Some people even tattooed encryption algorithms on their bodies and asked if that meant they couldn't travel abroad anymore. They were basically forcing the government to admit how absurd its position was.
So the Cypherpunks win round 1. A huge victory for free speech. They won the right to write and publish code. But as we get into our 4th section, the story takes a darker turn. That dream of a decentralized private internet, it started to fade, and it was replaced by something a lot more sinister.
And this quote is just devastatingly on point. The threat the cypherpunks were worried about didn't just come from the government in the end, it came from massive corporations. The internet didn't turn into this decentralized utopia, it became a handful of giant centralized platforms. And all of us, in exchange for seeing pictures of our friends' vacations, willingly gave away a level of personal information that the most ruthless secret police in history could only dream of having.
So, by the mid-2000s, it really felt like the cypherpunk vision had lost. The web was built on centralization. Your data wasn't yours. It lived on massive servers owned by Google and Facebook. And the new business model of the internet was surveillance capitalism. You get free services, and in return, they learn everything about you so they can sell you things more effectively. The movement was at its lowest point. The dream felt lost.
But then, when things looked the most bleak, something incredible happened. The core ideas of the movement came roaring back to life. So let's get to our final section. The Code is Reborn. This is the story of how an anonymous genius gave the cypherpunk movement a second chance.
You need to remember this date, October 31st, 2008. The world is in the middle of a massive financial crisis. Banks are failing. Governments are printing money to bail them out. Trust in the whole system is collapsing. And on that day, a quiet little email appears on a cryptography mailing list. The email was from a mysterious figure nobody had ever heard of, going by Satoshi Nakamoto. And it had a link to a simple 9-page white paper. The title was Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. But this wasn't just a new idea. It was a direct continuation of the Cypherpunk project, a masterpiece that pulled together decades of their research and their dreams. It was the solution to what they called their holy grail, real, digital, peer-to-peer cash.
And this slide really sums up why Bitcoin was such a bombshell for this community. It was peer-to-peer, no central bank, no company in the middle. It was the first working non-governmental money. And crucially, it was built on the foundations they had laid years before. Bitcoin is single-handedly responsible for the entire wave of activity we see today. It took their abstract ideas and turned them into real, running code, reviving the whole movement for a new generation.
And that brings us right back to their iconic motto, Cypherpunks write code. This wasn't just a cool slogan, it was their whole philosophy. It means you don't waste your time trying to persuade politicians. You don't ask for permission. If you want a more private world, you build the system that creates it. Real change, they believed, comes from technology, not politics. Satoshi Nakamoto didn't write a letter to Congress, they wrote code.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The battle the cypherpunks started is so far from over. In fact, it's more important now than ever. They saw this fundamental clash between freedom and control on the internet, and they chose to act. Their work proves that the digital world we live in isn't an accident, it's a choice.
We're still in the middle of this fight to build systems that protect and expand human freedom. Which really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. 30 years ago, they started writing the code for our future. Who's writing the next chapter?